I think the big thing to kind of unpack here is how do you know that the actions of your partner isn't just a shut up ring or a shut up move? Like what would be the defining key things that make you go, okay, I don't actually think that this is his behavior. I think he's just done this so that I'll stop asking for this thing that I really want so badly in my life.
At the end of the day, do you really want someone that you have to beg and nag and nag and nag, and at the end of the day push them into a corner to make that commitment? Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Brittany.
I'm Laura.
And Laura's really had a week. She is here. She is smiling, which is...
Am I?
Yeah.
Am I here? Not am I smiling?
You are smiling and you're here, but I think it's like in that, you know, when you're smiling like that manic way. You know when you're laughing at something and you're smiling,
it reminds me of
funny.
Alanis Morissette, where it's like cry at a funeral. Also very fitting. Sorry.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. You're here and you're having
that was grim.
Yeah, you're having a wonderful time. You've cracked some jokes, but it hasn't been a wonderful week.
No, it's been okay. I love being here, guys. I'm never going to come on the podcast and complain about doing the podcast because you guys, this is like the best thing that we get to do with our weeks is being here and doing this.
Sorry,
but
Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, if Ben was here, I'd say he's the best thing I get to do each week. But
sorry to my children who I love. But I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but we kind of don't want to get into it as like the intro of the crux of this episode. But if you listened to last Tuesday's episode, you would know that I was talking about my suck was that my nana was really unwell. Well, I have a much worse suck this week, and that is that my nana passed away last week. Yeah, and she was 94, so like
amazing.
It was her time, you know. It's not as though she had a lot of life left in her. And I've spoken about her so much on the pod around her dementia and kind of the last 5 years since my papa passed away. But it doesn't make it any less hard. It's still really sad. And I feel absolutely flattened by the week is how I feel.
Well, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want me to divert for a minute and then we can come back and sit in it? What would you prefer?
What would you like to do?
I'm here for you.
You tell me your funny stories first, and then we can talk about Shirley.
Okay. I'll tell you the only thing that happened to me this week, which is...
I'm crying.
I know. So I'm going to distract you for a minute. The only thing that really shook me this week, I'm having a real parenting crisis. Like, I'm not an actual parent, obviously, but I have Delilah, my dog. She's the love of my life. I imagine this is what it feels like when your kid goes to preschool and they call up and they say, you know, your child's been bullying people.
Oh, Delilah's a terror. That's why. What has she done now?
So
who is she? Who is she?
This is how I feel. This is what I actually felt like it. I was embarrassed. I was upset. I was really going through the emotions and I was like, wow, get a grip, Brittany. Obviously my period's coming or something. She goes to 2 dog walkers a week because when we have huge days of radio and podcasting, I'm out all day. She's an Australian Shepherd. She cannot be at home. So I pay these 2 separate dog walkers. They come get her in the morning. She's with them all day with a group of dogs. There's always photos. They're having the time of their life, and then they drop her back. Both dog walkers independently this week have basically kicked her out of dog school.
No, they haven't.
Yeah, she's the bully.
What does she do? She picks on other dogs.
No, she doesn't. She's very friendly, but she's really, really possessive and obsessive, right? And so producer Keeshia knows the same thing because producer Keisha's looked after for a long time since she was a puppy. And what she thinks, she's so obsessed with who she thinks her person is that if another dog or somebody comes too close and she gets a bit funny, she'll be very like aggressive as in not fight it, but get in between us, growl at it. Like, so she doesn't bite it or anything, but she's quite intimidating.
Oh,
and
I've
rough.
seen. Because the only reason why I make jokes is because anytime Britt's come over to our house, like my house, and Buster just wants to come and like hang out with me, Delilah's like, oh, fuck you up, Buster. Buster's like, I live here. That's my mom. Like, what are you doing?
100%.
She tries to protect me from my own dog.
They call it
100%.
resource guarding. It's got a word. Like a
I'm
lot of
not a
dogs.
resource. Like, I'm not food. Usually it's about kibble. It's not usually about a human that you don't know that well.
Well, yeah, resource guarding is with food and balls, which she also does. So she got into a fight last week at dog school because someone else tried to take her ball, but it wasn't her ball. She took it from that dog. So the dog was trying to get her own ball back. So anyway, they both independently were like, we think Delilah might be better suited somewhere else.
So what are you going to do? You've lost both your dog walkers. Is that what you're saying? As in Jodie, who we love.
Yeah.
Jodie can't do her anymore.
No, Jodie's put her on a 1 month trial, 1 more month.
Oh, she must be. Jody will take anything. Jody will take any dog. Jody loves every dog.
My dog walkers are amazing. I don't want anyone to think that they're not. Like Demi and Jody, shout out. They are incredible people. There's obviously a space in both groups now. If anyone needs their dog walked.
I can vouch for this because Jody, she's a lifer as well. We love you if
love
you're
you.
listening. You probably are, and
She
I hope
is.
you are. Jody has been my sister's dog. And my sister has dogs who are like 14 years old now. Like she's been my sister's dog walker for so long. She then became Buster's dog walker. And then now she's Delilah's. Delilah is the only dog that I have ever known that Jody's like too much. But that's years. That's real sad, Britt.
So-
we need to do something about this.
Okay, so here's where I'm at. So she's been banned from Wednesday. I'm not laughing, and everyone thinks that I'm not. Like, I have tried to train Delilah consistently from a puppy. She's gone to dog schools. She's gone to elite dog schools.
She's been to boot camp.
She's got
puppy
been
boot
to
camp.
boot camp. She's been to agility school. I've trained her. Like, I've
Yeah, but
done
we also got kicked out of agility school, remember?
But that's because she wanted to have sex with everyone. She's like a mum.
Don't slut shame her.
She had her first heat.
She's like a mum. They were like, "You're banned. You want to have too much sex," but because she was on heat. But she didn't focus. She wouldn't focus a lot, which maybe that's like her other mum, producer Keeshia. That was an ADHD joke. It didn't land.
Did not land. No one laughed.
She's at agility school. She wouldn't pay attention. She was always going off with other dogs. And anyway, long story short, I just want people to know it's not because I'm neglectful. Like, I have tried to put in the work. So this is where she's at. Wednesdays, banned. I'm going to find her someone else, which, you know, my dog walker's like, look, it's not like I'm dropping her now. I love her. If she's just hard, I'll do it for the next month and give you time to find someone else. And I was so deeply hurt. Like, she was a direct reflection of me. And then
She is, though. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Do you know what's worse than this? The only thing worse than this is when daycare calls you to tell you that your kid has nits and your kid is the nit kid. And that was my experience recently. And I was like, oh my God, the shame, the horror
Well, at
that
the
my
end-
child's a nit child.
Demi goes, and she's got fleas. No,
See?
no, she doesn't.
Your child's the nit child.
I was joking.
Welcome to parenting, Britt.
So she's got a 1 month trial for her Monday left to see if she can be better. So I feel all this pressure now, 1 month to prove herself. So she's recommended me a dog trainer that she said is good. I haven't ever used him. So I've reached out to him and it's so funny. I reached out to him on Instagram and was like, oh my God, you've been recommended. I've got an Aussie, blah, blah, blah. Do you think you can help me? And he wrote back straight away. And he's like, yeah, like we could do that. Tell me what you think the problems are and we'll go from there. And so I told him all the problems, blanked, radio science. Hasn't written back. And I'm like, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt for a day. He's probably on holiday with his family.
I find this funny because like we've spoken about Delilah is a part of the family, obviously, and we've spoken about her so much over the years. And there have been many times where people have given me a hard time because I'm like, she's terror. And I've said it as it is. And people are like, you're so mean to Delilah. Delilah is Brittany's child and she would never speak about your children like that. To be fair, Brittany on many occasions has said that the reason she doesn't want to have kids or wasn't sure about kids was because of my children. So just let's get that one back out there.
That's not because of the attitude. It's because of their explosive diarrhea that they spray around
I think
the place.
it's because Lola didn't stop crying for like the first year of her life, and you were like, "This is too much for me."
There was that
I
too.
like sleep. Yeah. But the thing about Delilah is she kind of reminds me, you know, when you're at school and someone's like so hot, you've got like the hot person, but they don't have to work on their personality at times because they can like, I can be a shit, and someone's still gonna date me. Like that really hot chick that's also like, just you're like, I don't know about you sometimes. That's Delilah. Delilah, she's amazing, but she also can just
Pretty privileged. It exists in the dog world too.
She has pretty
She doesn't
privilege.
know she's hot, guys. She's a
does.
dog.
Mate, she does.
She has. Actually, I have been catching her looking in the mirror sometimes. Like sometimes I see her staring in the mirror and I'm like, are you looking at yourself? I'm like, what
She's
are
like,
you
fuck,
looking
I'm
at?
like
hot.
mum, like daughter.
Hang on. What I want to say in her defense is that she's actually the most perfect dog with people, with kids, with her affection, her everything. It's just this resource obsessiveness and the protectiveness is too much. And it's the problem when we're in public, at home and when it's just us. But it's the protection thing. And I don't know, like, fair, right? She wants to keep me safe.
No, I think we need to give Delilah a bit of slack because she comes from a broken home. Like her dad left when she was a baby. Her dad walked out.
Jordan, fuck you. Delilah's issues are from you.
She comes from a broken home. Her dad walked out when she was a baby. Her mum is a working mum. She knows she's busy.
I've got to do what I have to do to put bacon.
She's always with the nanny, you know, and so like she doesn't know. She's got an identity crisis. It's a really hard life living like that as a child.
She's got an anxious attachment style.
So
she doesn't.
Are you saying I'm supposed to feel guilty
No,
for being a working mum and putting bacon in that bowl?
Absolutely not. You're doing the best that you can with what you have.
Damn straight.
The salmon.
Anyway, if you're a dog walker, I mean, if you're A, a dog walker, or B, a dog trainer, more importantly. So, sorry, back to the 1 month trial.
What?
Sorry, because Jodie has said, I know, trust me, stay with it. Jodie has said that if she can improve in a month, she'll keep her on. So I'm on a 1 month time frame to whip that dog into shape.
Probation.
So that she can stay with a dog walker. Pray for me, everyone. If you're a dog trainer, slide into my DMs. Anyway, that's my...
Oh, fuck.
That's my life update.
Thank you. I needed that. That was great.
Love you, Delilah.
Well, look, we do love Delilah. She could come to the studio if she didn't drop her hair everywhere.
Maybe I can just start bringing her in and put her in the corner. She's really chill now.
I think it's more the hair factor.
I'll bring a vacuum.
Okay. I'm not against. It's not my studio. I don't care. So, I mean, speaking of pussies? I was going to say speaking of dogs, then pussies. I mean, kind of like within the same realm, but slightly different. So last week we were talking about the word pussy. As in, like, you know, calling someone a pussy for not being brave enough.
Like, jump off the cliff, you pussy.
Yeah, just do it, you pussy.
Yeah.
And then we kind of, you know, as I said it and as the word pussy, actually, I think you said it. But anyway, as the word came out of someone's mouth in here, the like PC lens of mine was like, oh God, somebody in the comment section is going to they're going to fucking come for us for the use of the word pussy now. Well, then we ended up getting into a weird conversation about Betty White and how like pussies are actually really strong.
They take a pumping.
They take a pounding.
Yeah.
Look, we really tried to cover all bases there. But anyway, one of you guys slid into our DMs or into the Facebook group. Someone slid.
We got schooled.
Someone slid into my pussy and told me that actually the word pussy, like calling someone a pussy for not being strong enough, has nothing to do with vaginas. So we can all like stop worrying about it because I know everyone's been losing sleep. So the word pussy originates from the word pusillanimous, which is showing a lack of courage or determination or is timid. Pusillanimous. So the next time someone is being a pussy, don't call them a pussy. Call them a pusillanimous.
And it means it's okay to use it without feeling guilty, like it's like a derogatory term related to the vagina.
Yeah, because let's not put our vaginas or our vulvas down. Let's not call people pussies. Let's call them pusillanimouses.
When I always said pussy though.
Pusillanimi.
Because
what's the plural of it?
Just one flap.
Pusillanimi. So stupid.
When I used the term pussy, I don't cringe. I would always say to somebody, you're a pussy, but not because I never actually associate it with a vagina. I just associated it with being scared. Because when I hear the word pussy in relation to a vagina, I cringe. I don't like vaginas being called pussies. So if I was hooking up with someone who's like, yeah, show me your pussy, I'd be like, ew, there's the front door. That's what I'll show you. I don't like the term.
Back door as well.
Ew.
Sorry.
No, first date. I don't like the term pussy in relation to a vagina or sex.
100% agree. But everyone's different. Like some people find that really hot and steamy. There isn't a term. This is the unfortunate thing. For me, there isn't a term for a vulva or for a vagina that a guy can say that makes me feel like that's sexy.
So what's your word if you're getting into it and he's trying to sexy talk and he has to use a word to refer to it, what would you want if it's not? Because if it had to happen for me, it'd be pussy.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because if
it's
someone's
the only
like,
word that there is, but I don't enjoy it being said. I'm not like,
your
yes,
cervix
that's
is
it.
so wet.
But
like that doesn't work.
It's your vulva. Like it doesn't turn me on. It doesn't. It's
I'll be like, my Volvo, the car.
No, it doesn't turn you on. Okay, but what is yours when it comes to a penis?
If I'm probably cock.
Yeah. We're all so basic.
Willy.
Dick.
Once I said
Willy.
Once I said willy, but like
get your willy out.
Show me a willy. I would say no, but I think dick's okay as well.
No, I think it's cock for me. If I'm going to dirty talk, dick feels like a swear word. Like if I'm calling someone a dick, like it doesn't really feel like something to bring into the bedroom. But I wouldn't really call someone a cock.
Okay, the relation for the two, dick for me just is like a regular penis. But when you say cock, it makes it sound like it's going to destroy you. Like cock just means it's going to tear you apart. So it's like
it's a real compliment, isn't it?
I think men would want it to be referred to as a COCK.
Yeah, I like that you spelt it out after saying cock 5 times.
I thought we said it too much.
All right. Well, look, off that back of that note, I'm sure my nan would really appreciate us talking about her now. Sorry, Shirley May.
What a segue.
Wonder what she used to use.
We love you,
Wonder if
Shirley.
she said cock or dick. Anyway, so look, the reason why I want to talk about this isn't because, I mean, it's a weird one for me because I kind of partly feel like you almost can't be sad when someone who's 94 years old passes away because it is so not a tragedy, especially when my nan's had dementia for so long, and for the past 5 years, I think her life has been really hard. She's been living in a home. She lost her husband and like the love of her life. My grandparents were together since she was 16.
And
and
like
so
your whole life.
her whole life. And so for the past like 5 years, every time you see her, she's always like, love you, ready to die now. So she's thrilled. Like this is exactly what she wanted.
Like, love you, kill me on the way out. But it's funny. The only thing I will say that I don't know if I agree with, and I just think that we're told that when someone has lived a long life, like they're in their 90s, we're told that like you shouldn't be sad, you should be happy they had a fulfilling life, which is so true. But you can still be sad that that person that has been a part of your whole life, even though they've lived a full life, it's still sad. Like you've still lost someone. It makes it a little bit more comforting to know they had the great life, but it doesn't take away the grief.
Totally. And for me, it's a bit different because my grandparents were more than just grandparents to me. Like I lived with my grandparents growing up. So my nan was my second mum and my grandfather my papa, he filled such a paternal role in my life. And for that, like I'll be forever grateful for them because they were, during a time when my childhood was very chaotic, they were the one relationship that was always stable and they always showed up for me and my sister and my brother. So they were really incredible people. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because we have an episode that's coming out tomorrow. It is with hospice nurse Julie, who is very prolific across TikTok. And we recorded this before we actually went on holidays. And so at the time, my nan didn't have pneumonia and she wasn't unwell. And one of the things that hospice nurse Julie talked about in this episode is this moment of clarity that often people have when they are in palliative care and they are in the final stages before death. And I'm genuinely so grateful that we had done that interview and we had had that conversation just before Nan passing away because I think it gave me a little bit of an understanding and a bit of a preparation for what was going to happen. I didn't expect the timing to be so soon, but it really made a massive difference to me. And the reason why it did make this massive difference is because one of the things that Julie was speaking about is that when some patients, whether it be dementia patients or very elderly, have been like non-responsive or have been like very unconnected for a long time, that they have these moments often in the final stages just before death of lucidity where they come to and they're able to have conversations and talk. And she said that there's this experience that some people have, which no one knows why, but it seems this real like lucid connection again with reality.
Like the fog lifts for a minute.
Yeah. And my nan has not been very conscious at all for the last couple of weeks. Even when she didn't have pneumonia, you were only getting sort of like very short replies out of her. But I went down there to Wollongong 2 nights before she passed away and nobody else had had a conversation with her. My sister had been down there that same day and she hadn't even woken up and Alicia was at the hospital for over an hour. And I got down there and she was completely asleep and she was like very heavy in the chest and like a real like drawl of trying to breathe. And then I sat down and I was just having a conversation with her. Like I was just talking to her as though she could understand what I was saying, even though she was completely not conscious. And then she started to show signs after about 20 minutes that she knew I was there. She was like moving her hand and then after a little bit longer, she was trying to raise her hand up to hold my hand. And then slowly she started showing more and more awareness that I was there. What happened next was like truly incredible and something that I will keep with me for the rest of my life. She woke up and she was like, my back is sore. She wanted to sit up in bed. So I got the nurse and the nurse came in and sat her up. And then we spent an hour and 40 minutes just talking about all the memories that we have. Like she was prompting me on stories about my papa, things like how he would ride his bike to go see her and put newspaper down his shirt to stay warm because they had no money. And she was like, the big paper, the Sun Herald, because it covered him up more. And she was actually the one who was prompting these stories. And she, you know, she was saying things like, what about the rat behind the oven? And then trying to prompt me on stories about from when I was living in Lismore and how we had this rat that ended up behind the oven. And these things that I thought that there's no way that she would remember. But she remembered them so clearly, even if the timeline wasn't exact. She got the timeline mixed up, but the stories themselves she remembered.
Well, it's also, when you think of dementia, a lot of dementia patients, it's quite short term or the second half of their life that they forget things. But when you think about the fact how involved you were in their life, like you lived with them from a really young age. So all her memories, she does remember that whole part. You know, if that was me and my nan, I didn't have that relationship. So she might not have remembered who I even was, but you were such an integral part of her life. So it must be so nice for her to, but like so random, like the rat at uni that time, like what a strange memory.
Well, it was I mean, like the story behind that is probably too much to get into, but it was
the rat was very traumatic.
No, it was
I
like,
accidentally cooked it.
I lived in Lismore and like I was living in a terrible share house, and the last straw was this rat that ended up like running through the kitchen and jumping behind the oven. And I called my nan at the time and I was like, I can't live here anymore. And her and my papa drove up to come pick me up from Lismore and bring me home. And so so she was like, remember the rat? And because she was like, you're living in squalor.
Which must have been a really big moment for her too.
Yeah.
If that's what stood out, there must have been a moment where she's like, I'm going to go protect my granddaughter. Like I'm going to go get her and bring her home to safety. Like she's remembered that.
She remembered that. And she also talked so much about like having dreams about Papa. She said, I've been seeing Papa a lot, which was really sweet. And then I asked her, I know it's probably a bit late to ask now, Nan, but what do you want at your funeral? Like if you have a choice, what do you want to have there? She goes, I just want your Papa to be there. And I was like, oh, Nan, because sometimes she would forget that he's not alive. And I was like, oh, Nan,
So
you know,
sad.
he'll be with you. He won't be there. And she goes, no, in the urn. So she wanted me to bring the urn to the funeral.
Would you?
Yeah,
would you put them together?
Yeah, he's under the kitchen bench at the moment. So we're going to bring him.
Great, he's with the rat under the sink.
He's been waiting for Nan. They want to get thrown. Their thing is that they always wanted to get cremated and thrown off Mount Kembla. No, Mount Kembla, Mount Kira. They always wanted to get thrown off like this mountain.
I feel like you need to know which mountain it is.
I think it's Mount Kira.
I'm going to throw her somewhere.
They wanted to get thrown off Mount Kembla in Wollongong together. Yeah, so he's been waiting. So that's the next step.
So your nan wants to be cremated, and then that's what you guys are going to do together.
Yeah, we're going to go down as a family and toss them off. So my
So
advice
nice.
would be to don't go. I'll let you guys all know. Don't go hiking that day on Mount Kira, because if a bit of dust falls down, it's Nana and Papa on their way down the mountain.
I remember, this is a fucked thing to attach to the back, but here we are. I remember years ago we had an accidentally unfiltered written in about a girl that was on a walk along a cliff face. Like it was like a beach walk with a guy. They were on a date, I think, and they could feel stuff on them, falling on them. And they were like, what? What is this? And they looked around and they looked up and they realized that they were getting someone's ashes off the cliff. Someone was like spreading ashes and it went all over them. On their first date, they were covered in a dead person. Like, so
Nana,
yes.
Papa, is that you?
Yeah, Dad. So be careful, A, if you're going for a hike, and B, if you're spreading ashes.
If you think it's a windy day and it's really dusty, like have a little reassessment as to what's going on. No, but anyway, the reason why I wanted to say it, like I said, is tomorrow's episode, Hospice Nurse Julie. The reality is that we are all at some point in our life going to lose someone who we love. And as we get older, those moments seem to happen a lot more frequent than what you would like. And it gave me a lot of comfort doing that interview prior to this, happening with Nan. So I would so recommend everybody listens to tomorrow's episode, because she is incredible. And there's so few people who can speak about the closeness of death and the experience of death and being around a loved one who dies, and also someone who's seen it not just intimately but also objectively as well, because she stood alongside it. So it's an awesome interview. It's coming out tomorrow.
Well, two things. One thing, I've been around a lot of death in hospitals, and I learned so much more from Nurse Julie. It's just such a different lens and a different angle. Like even, I think everyone, no matter what stage of life you are at or what grief you've been through, this is an episode for everyone. Like it was very fascinating and educational. And the other thing I want to add is, because I know there might be a lot of people listening now that don't really understand the conversation we just had or how we had it, in terms of, we just made a lot of jokes and there's a lot of laughing. But I just want it to be said that Laura has gone through it in her own way for however long, you know. There's a lot of the time that we deal with things with laughter. We don't want anyone to be offended the fact that we can make some jokes and things like that, because it's
I think it's the only way to deal with it. I mean, yeah. Look, it's been a really hard time for my mum at the moment because, like, as you all know, you guys have been listening to the show for a while. Like, my stepdad's in palliative care and my mum's just lost her mum. So I think the reason why I feel so flat and so sad isn't just because of Nan. You know, like, Nan's... She was so ready. I know that she would be like, guys, you held on to me for way too long.
She's like, fuck off and let me go.
She was done with our shit a long time ago. But I really feel for my mum because my mum is the primary carer for my stepdad at the moment. And then now she's just lost her mum. So yeah, fuck man, life, hey, throws you some curveballs and then you've lost your dog walker. So like, it's fucked.
Please don't collate the two. My grief this week, whilst it has been tough, does not compare to yours.
Anyway, the only way to deal with this shit is by having a laugh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get into what we're actually talking about today.
So we want to talk about something today. It's called shut up rings. Or shut up moves, I guess.
Do you know what is so funny about this? Because, like, as two people who work in the space of relationships, we have a relationships podcast. Everywhere that I had read about this, everyone's like, oh, you've all heard of, like, a shut up ring.
Nope.
And
never.
I genuinely, hand on my heart, was like, oh, fuck, I'm such a millennial. I had not heard of shut up ring, but I understand the concept. We're going to tell you the concept. If you've never heard of a shut up ring, you are not alone.
So the idea of shut up rings, which we're going to get into, has been around for a while. It is having a little bit of a resurgence, but that is because of this one girl on TikTok who has advanced the idea of shut up rings. It's evolved. Thank you. That was what I was looking for. It's evolved to shut up moves, not just shut up rings. Her TikTok is Monica Millington, but have a listen to what she says about shut up moves.
Now, shut up moves are basically any action that a man will take to get you to shut up. In the same vein as a shut up ring, and if you don't know what a shut up ring is, it's basically when you have been in a relationship for long enough and the woman is saying, why haven't you proposed to me? Why aren't you proposing? And the man eventually proposes not by his own free will, but because he thinks it will get her to shut up and he can just live his life in peace if he marries her. So in this commenter situation, the guy is moving in with her just to get her to stop talking about moving in, and more importantly, getting her to stop talking about the future and getting her to stop talking about where's this going, when are we getting married, what's our future look like, do we want kids, what's our plan. And I think as women we get roped into these things and we think that they're good things in the beginning because we're like, oh my god, we finally got what we wanted, he's finally doing it, he's finally proposing, he's finally moving in, he's finally making moves for our future. But this is so problematic because it's a short-term solution for long-term pain, because it's not genuine, it's not authentic, it's not coming from a place of wanting to build lives together. And I remember before I got divorced, I had a whole lot of shut up moves that came my way. I said, I need you to tell me that I'm beautiful. I need you to book therapy. I need you to bring me home flowers. I need all of these things so that I know that you're committed to this marriage. And I probably got them for like this much time before we fell back into our old habits and our old style of relationship. And I realized that was actually not a long-term, realistic, authentic solution. It was just something to get me to shut up in the moment.
I think that this is a really interesting concept. And like, as much as, everything now when it comes to relationships has a term and has a way in which to explain it, but I think a lot of people would have experienced this, whether it be in their current relationship or past relationships. And I cannot tell you the amount of questions we get in from people who are Ask Uncut questions, who are saying, I've been with my partner for X amount of years. I really want to get married and he hasn't met me there yet, or I don't know how to bring it up with him, or we've talked about it and yet he's made no attempt or no initiation to kind of actually take a step in that direction. And I think there's a big question here around knowing where the line is between badgering and nagging someone into doing the things that you want them to do to progress your life, and showing someone and explaining to someone the things that you want so that you're on the same page. And I think it's a really, it's an interesting thing about kind of unpacking where does that line sit.
I feel quite uncomfortable when I listen to this. And the reason is I completely understand what women are saying when they're like, oh, I've received shut up rings or shut up moves, or they do this just to keep me quiet and then it falls apart later because I said, you've got to propose or I'm leaving. Like, I've put 5 years of my life in, propose or I'm leaving.
There's an ultimatum.
It's an ultimatum. And at the end of the day, ultimatums are really negative and really detrimental in a relationship. And I think it's quite a last-ditch effort to be trying to hold on to something or get something that you want. But the reason I feel a bit uncomfortable with it is I don't want this conversation to be about blaming men. Like, I have pushed you and pushed you and pushed you and you're not doing it. So then you do it and then I get fucked over. At the end of the day, there's two people here in a relationship. Maybe you want different things. But if you have pushed and pushed, we're just going to use the proposal, right? We're going to talk about the ring. If you have said to your partner, I just want to get married and I'm sick of waiting. So if you don't propose by 6 months, I'm done. I'm going to go find someone who will marry me. Because we do get these questions a lot. And when I did a deep dive, there were so many of these like Reddit threads, so many discussion groups, so many people. I was shocked at how many people were putting those ultimatums to their partner and then complaining that it didn't work. Of course it's not going to work. An ultimatum like that about proposing by a certain day is a manipulation. It is literally saying, you have to have the extreme version of me. Like, we have to completely get married or you're getting nothing. So, of course, these people are going to be panicked and manipulated and bullied into that situation. But I think you have to ask yourself, do I really want to get what I want because I've pushed that person into a corner?
Yeah, I feel a little bit, I don't feel like, woe is the men who get manipulated by their female spouses.
I'm not saying that, but I think I don't think we can just blame one of the sexes in these situations.
No, I don't. But I mean, like, look, we're speaking predominantly heterosexual relationships here. Obviously, every relationship is very, very different. But I think when you have given 6 years or 7 years of your life or 8 years or 10 years of your life to a relationship and you have communicated from day dot that marriage and children and some of those other, like whatever the traditional goals that you have in your life are for where you want your life to be, you've communicated that and you have been given the belief that those things will exist in your relationship with that person, but you wait and you wait and you wait. There comes a place where I understand why people feel as though they need to give an ultimatum because they're at their wits' ends. They're like, well, we've had this conversation now for 7 years and nothing's happened. And it's a big deal to feel as though you're just going to walk away. Like as a woman who's in that place, who's like, okay, I've given 7 years of my life to this relationship. I want to marry you. I want to spend my life with you. You have said you want those things with me. So when's it happening? What's the problem here? And I think that there are a lot of guys who are happy to just coast. And the reason for that is also because they don't need to worry about their biological clock. They're not thinking, oh, I've just taken the best years of this woman's life and her fertility window. They're like, well, like I'm not feeling it yet, but I'll just wait and see.
Yeah.
Some people do have this really casual perspective to relationships, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if you've led someone to believe the alternate. That's why I understand why some women give men ultimatums, but just because I understand it doesn't mean that I believe that ultimatums will work out favorably. I think that if you're at a point in your relationship where you have to make an ultimatum to get that person to do the thing that you want, you may get a short-term solution, as we know, and it probably won't work out in the long term. I think the big thing to kind of unpack here is, how do you know if you're someone who has been waiting for a really long time, or if you're someone who does feel as though you're constantly asking for a thing in your relationship, how do you know that the actions of your partner isn't just a shut up ring or a shut up move? Like, what would be the defining key things that make you go, okay, I don't actually think that this is his behavior. I think he's just done this so that I'll stop asking for this thing that I really want so badly in my life.
Well, I guess this is another question. Like, your question opens up another question of how many times do you feel like you should be nagging and begging for something as big as a proposal? Like, what you are asking for, we're talking about the person that you hopefully will spend the rest of your very long life with. At the end of the day, do you really want someone that you have to beg and beg and nag and nag and nag, and at the end of the day push them into a corner to make that commitment? Now, I'm not blaming either side here. I'm not saying either thing is right or wrong. I'm just saying I do think that sometimes we need to be a little bit introspective about what we're asking and how we're asking for it and what we're wanting. Maybe the situation or the person isn't the right person for you, full stop. Maybe they don't want the same things as you, full stop.
That's a really, really hard thing to objectively look at in your own relationship and go, this person won't give me what I want.
And having said that, and I'm going to use like a personal example here for me, maybe there's a lot of men out there, and again, heterosexual, we're talking men and women. Maybe there's a lot of men out there that don't have a full comprehension or understanding of, like Laura just said, the biological clock or what's important to you. So the reason I say that is I'm 37 next month, And you guys know that I don't have a great fertility window. But Ben and I had these conversations really openly. And this is what I think this all comes back to, is just having a really open conversation about your timeline, what you're looking for, what you want, getting an understanding of if they want the same things. And when I had said to Ben, I had sort of explained, I was like, we'd said we want to get married. We said we'd probably want to have kids one day. And because we don't live together, it's a bit different. We had a timeline. And I had to explain to him, I was like, I'd love to get engaged in the next year. He's like, do you feel like there's a rush? Like, what's the rush? I said, well, it's not a rush, but there is a timeline. And for me personally, I would like to be married before I had kids. Not the end of the world, but it's how I see it. It's how I would like the next 2 to 3 years to go. And then I had to, and he's like, okay, cool, I get that. And then I had to explain to him, I said, well, think of the timeline, Ben. Like, if I want to have a baby, it's probably going to be IVF, which could take a while. And then a pregnancy is, let's just say, a year by the time you actually conceive. And then usually an engagement is a year. I said, all of a sudden, that's 2.5, 3 years like that. And I was like, so these are things you got to think of. And he's like, I guess I didn't think of the long timeline. I just thought you're getting engaged
and then
you get married. And then, so I think that was just an open conversation about how I wanted to see the future, and then literally breaking it down to what it looks like. And he's like, wow, I hadn't thought of it like that.
Well, I kind of interpret this whole idea of like a shut up ring maybe a little bit differently. And that is someone might propose and then they have zero initiative or care about actually organizing a wedding or even a date in mind. They're like, oh no, I'm not worried about the wedding. I was just thinking about the proposal. And that's because it buys them time within this kind of relationship. I guess my one experience that I can really think about where I know that I was in, it was the wrong relationship, but I wanted it so desperately to work. And there was a shut up move, not a shut up ring. I'd been with my boyfriend for almost 6 years. My first like really, really long-term relationship, the one I've talked about where I was like convinced that we were going to get married. He was not. But he never
didn't even know we were dating.
He never bought me a present. In 5.5 years of our relationship, he never bought me a present. I'm talking Christmas, no present. Birthday, no present. He just never, ever, ever bought me anything.
So weird.
It's so weird.
Like,
but
not even to give you anything.
Nothing. But it was also my first big relationship, and I was so desperately in love with him that I would have made any excuse, like any excuse for anything.
Did
right?
he say happy birthday or give you a card? Or did you have dinner?
He just said, I'm not a birthday person. Like he did
like,
not
cool,
care.
I am.
Yeah, I know. Presents. But I remember we got to like the 5th year and my birthday had come and gone again and he'd not bought me anything. And so I kicked up a bit of a stink. And like each year I would kick up a bit more of a stink. There would be a bit more pass-ag kind of like commentary around it.
Yeah.
And this year I got really passive aggressive and I was like, I feel as though you don't care. You don't make me feel special on my birthday. You don't do anything. You don't buy me anything. Not that it's about the gifts, but you don't give me a card. Like you do nothing that makes me feel special on my birthday. And so 2 weeks later, he comes home from work this one day and he'd obviously walked past a store on his way home from work and he'd bought a necklace. At the time, I just started Tony May. I made jewelry for a job and it was a weird thing to be given a necklace that was, one, completely not my style, and two, I knew he just picked it up from the shop that we would walk past on the way home. Like he literally gotten off the bus and gone to this shop.
Like you felt like there was no thought or effort.
Nothing. But I know that was a shut up present. He was like, see, look, I think of you. I did this as a spontaneous act of gift giving. Like, I'm so great. And he, in his mind, had bought him some time. He didn't buy me another present after that. He never put in effort when it came to the next Christmas or anything. It was like very much an act just to show that he had listened to that conversation. But I do think that there is a very fine line between taking this too seriously, because I think we do need to tell our partners what it is that we want in relationships. And it is important that, sometimes we might have to explain to them how we feel or where we want the relationship to go. I don't like the idea, and there's that saying, if they wanted to, they would, right? I don't like the idea of thinking that every single person you're in a relationship with intuitively knows you well enough that they will just hit the mark every single time. It's not going to happen. There are going to be times where your partner, no matter how wonderful they are, completely misses the mark and doesn't give you the things that you need in your relationships. And it's okay to have to explain to them what it is that you need to be satisfied. The difference is, I think, the nagging. The difference is having to constantly and repetitively ask for the same thing over and over and over for them to only change their behavior for a short period of time to then go back to their default. That's what I think defines a shut up move or a shut up ring.
But it's also situational. And are we talking like you nagging constantly because they never put the dishes away? The kitchen's always a pigsty. Like constant nagging, I can't live in this mess, I need you to be better? Or is it something way bigger and way more serious, like I want you to meet my family, or I want to move in together, I want to take that next step? These are fine if that's what you really want and need in a relationship. It is so fine to say that to your partner and say, this is what I need for us to move forward. I need to not feel like there's a commitment. But you also have to understand that their answer might not match yours and they might be feeling very different. So whilst you need them to move in to make that commitment, they very well might not be ready. So you have to be prepared when you go to your relationship, situationship, whatever it is, when you go to them with something that could result in an ultimatum, like what you're needing, I think you really need to be prepared that their answer might not match yours. It might not end the way you want it to, but you need to be prepared to walk away. So if you're saying you need to propose by this time or I'm done, it can't be a threat, because it is a threat, but it has to be something that you're willing to actually go through with. If you are going to back your partner into a corner in any capacity, you have to really mean it and you have to be willing to say,
but that
okay, I'm going to walk away.
But in saying that is still the ultimatum, because if somebody, whether they are absolutely going to do it or they're not going to do it, whether it's a real threat or an empty threat, making and giving that ultimatum still means that ultimately the reason why that person might do the moving in or giving of the ring is because of the extreme. It's like, well, if you don't do this thing, then you get nothing. That's why they're making the move in the first place. So, I mean, it does kind of come back full circle to this reasoning as to why ultimatums are really unhealthy in relationships. However, sometimes they do have to be made, and they have to be made for yourself from a self-preservation perspective. But I think it's really, really hard when you have committed so much time to someone and to a relationship to just give up when you see so much potential in where it can be and you see so much potential in what you want with that person. But I think there does come a point where you have to be honest with yourself and really question, do they have the capacity to give me what I want in life? Or am I constantly desiring more than what it is that they are offering me, even if they're saying, because like we all know people can say one thing and then their actions mean very different things. So if your partner's saying, oh yeah, next year we'll get engaged, then next year comes and goes, and then they're like, well, yeah, no, we've been really busy, this has come up, that's come up, it'll be the year after. I think if this behavior has been going on for so long, you have to give yourself a kind of understanding as to what's your timeline going to be. Britt, here's a question for you, because I mean, this whole idea of like someone being forced into doing something that they don't want to do in a relationship in terms of like making a commitment, even though the rest of their life probably pertains to that commitment anyway, as in like you're already living with the person, you're already, you're involved in each other's lives, maybe you've got kids already, but they haven't like, taken that next step. How long do you think is an acceptable time to wait for something that you want? Whether it's moving in with your partner, whether it's getting married.
I just think how long is a piece of string? I don't think you can put a time frame on that. That is so dependent and individual on every single relationship, situationship, and the way you feel inside, your boundaries and what you expect and see in your relationship. I don't think you can say it's like, you've waited for 6 months, that's long enough. It depends on their behavior when they're in the relationship as well. Like, are they blatantly promising you something like next year we're going to do it and then not following through? Or is it just a conversation that you haven't really had properly? Has it been up in the air and you're just thinking, oh, it's been 6 years, it's got to be next year, without having the conversation? I don't think there is a right and wrong answer for anyone. What it comes down to is what is important to you and what you want from that relationship, and is your partner going to give it to you? The only way to find those out is to have those really hard conversations. Actually, I don't even think it is a hard conversation. I think if you're at the point where you're talking about moving in and big commitments and marriage and kids, they're conversations that should be pretty easy, that you should be pretty open to say what you want and ask the question of your partner. You have to both have the same expectations for what you want. And I think it's important to find out if there is a difference in the way you see your future pretty early on, because time and time again, and I have a really good friend who's still in this situation now, time and time again, two people make their motives and the way they see their future very clear at the beginning, but one person always doesn't listen. Like they don't match, and one person's always like, I'm going to change them. I know they said I know they said they don't want to get married, but
I'll be the exception.
If we're together 4 years and we have a kid and they're going to want to get married, or maybe they say they don't want kids and they've always said that, and then 4 years in, you're going to be like, well, surely, like we've lived together, we're going to spend our life together, surely they'll want it. And then they get so shocked when they are 4 years deep and the partner says, I told you I didn't want them.
Yeah, I think that that's a very different situation. When someone's telling you what they want in their relationship, listen to them. But I think it's the alternate that can be really tricky, and it's the alternate that we've received lots of ask uncuts on. It's when someone's promising something, but their actions don't actually come through with the thing that they're saying that they want. And I think for me, there is a timeline. I know that that's going to be different for every person, but I don't think now, I know in my 20s, I would have waited a long time. Man, I waited 6 years, right? Like I waited and I was so hopeful that he would one day come around and propose to me and want all the big things I wanted. But I do think as you get older, potentially, that timeline gets shorter. Because I know that, you know, when I met Matt, I wouldn't have stayed in a relationship with him if he wasn't clear that he was on the same page with the things that I wanted and actually followed through with actions, not just words, with those things. And I think that that's really important for everyone to assess. Like, what is your timeline? And then what is the timeline that you will accept from your partner? Because no one wants to be in a relationship where they feel as though they have to badger or nag that person to fulfill the things that's going to make them happy in life. Because ultimately, as we know, it won't make you happy anyway.
And it's so funny when you think of pushing someone into a corner to get what you want. Not what you want, that sounds bad. But when I think
But
of
it is.
It is. It is. I don't think an ultimatum should ever happen in a relationship. I know we say there's a time and a place at some stage, but I think you can give an ultimatum without making it such a threat and a manipulation. Like you could say, instead of saying, if you don't propose by next year, I'm out the door, you say, look, marriage is so important to me and for my timeline and where I see us going. And I think if you don't feel ready to commit next year, then maybe we have to think of if we're on the same page. There are ways to have those conversations without saying, bro, next year, like I get a ring or I'm out.
But I don't know. I mean, I think about this situation that happened recently and, you know, someone very dear to me who's been in a relationship for a long time, I asked him, like, are you guys going to get engaged? You know, are you going to propose? Knowing that that's something that is important to his partner. And he was like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? You guys have been together for 8 years. What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah, I feel like you should know.
And he was like, oh, it's just like, you know, he's like I love her, but I don't know whether or not I'm going to propose soon. And I was like, dude, you've just taken her entire 30s. So if you've been together for 8 years and you don't know yet if you're going to propose and she thinks you're going to, either man the fuck up or be honest about what it is that you want in your life. Because I do think that we can waste people's time and we have a responsibility, especially if we're leading them on, that we want something and they think we want something, but we're verbalizing differently to our friends. You know, I think some men, and I'm being very like stereotypical in terms of, you know, heterosexual relationships, some men do not think about that window and they do not think about taking what are some of the most important years to a woman when it comes to fertility.
But that makes me question, in your friend's situation, that makes me question, have they ever had the conversation and he's telling her one thing and then telling you another? Like, is he telling her he's going to propose? And
Well,
then
I'm
saying,
not in their relationship, but I know that he knows that it's important to her and he's just biding time.
Think of how many times, and I've done this so many times in different relationships or situations, think of how much you push someone, you nag and nag and nag. You don't get me presents, right? Like, you don't ever get me anything. All I ever want is a present. So they're like, fine. So they go out, buy your present, come home, and you're like, well, I don't want it now because I made you do it. That's the whole point. If you are making somebody do something against their will, do you really want it? And that's what I think you need to ask yourself. Same with an apology. When you're like, just say sorry. Like, you're in the wrong. Fine, I'm sorry. Well, no, you're not. That wasn't real. You only said it because I made you say it. It's the same conversation about pushing someone in to do something, to just shut up. Okay, I'm sorry. If you'll just shut up, I'll say sorry.
Yeah, well, there's a lack of satisfaction because even though on paper you're on the same page, you know in your heart that you're absolutely not. And I think that that's what's so hard for some people. It's a big conversation. I know it's a silly thing talking about this shut up rings or shut up moves, but it's a really big conversation to think about not being on the same page and not having the same timeline as someone you love when you can see the potential in your relationship. But it's so important to look beyond potential and look at what they're doing to show you that they're showing up to that relationship and you're not having to ask them constantly to show up, because that's just not how a team or how a relationship should evolve.
Yeah.
It is time for our suck and our sweet of our week, our highs and our lows. Guys, you know my suck of the week. I don't think I need to go into that again. But my sweet of the week is we went down on the weekend to Wollongong and took my mum and my auntie out for a lunch, and it was honestly like my mum needed it so much, but it was just such a nice time to go out and like spend time with family, to like reminisce about the good things from our childhood. And we went to the restaurant that I used to work at that I've spoken about before.
That you used
the
to-
seafood Wollongong, the seafood restaurant in Wollongong.
Where you used to eat food off plates and stuff.
Yeah, where I used to stand in the back of the kitchen and eat the scraps off everyone's seafood platter.
We've all
but
been
now
there.
I'm at a point in my life where I could buy the seafood platter. So that was like, it was a real full circle moment for me.
How the turntables.
How the turns of table. So that was my sweet. Yeah. And also the kids are on the other side of gastro. It's really like shit turned a corner this week.
What a time to be alive
I
in the
know.
Byrne household.
Well, was it? I don't know. It was a particular.
Oh my God, that was such a bag. What a time to be alive. Your nan died. Just when I
Not
think,
the nan.
Just when I think I can't put my foot in it anymore, I always find a way. What a time to be alive, except for Laura Stan.
Except for Nan.
Oh my
She'd be, look,
sorry.
she would laugh. She's fun. She likes a good joke.
Yeah.
She loved a good giggle, that old Shirley made.
Rest in peace, Shirley.
Yeah, I think it's been a particularly downer week for us. But there's always, even in the shittiest moments, there's always little sweets that you can hold on to.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mine is same Delilah, little turd burger. She's really been the bane of my existence this week, so I'm not going to lean into that anymore. And my sweet, probably similar to last week, where I told you my suck was that my little nephew was here having an operation. Because he's only one, they have to hang around for 2 weeks because you have to be close to the hospital. So I got to spend some really good time with my sister-in-law and my 2 nephews, the one that's had the operation because he's out of hospital, and my now 2-week-old nephew.
You just posting photos with a newborn baby is the weirdest thing I've
I
ever
know.
seen. It's like,
I felt weird.
what am I holding?
He's just so long and gangly, and I just look at him all the time, and I'm like, what do I do with you? I'll just hold you, and then I'm like, wow,
That's what you do with them. Just hold them.
But I don't even need to. I just put him down in a blanket, and he's so fine. I left for 8 hours and came back, and he was still fine.
That's a joke, everyone.
That's a
That's what we
joke.
call comedy in the business.
But it was really sweet because whenever I've got a lot of nieces and nephews actually. 1, 2, I got like 7 or 8 of them or something. I can't even count them anymore. But I never get to spend that much time with them, especially when they're little, because none of them live here. So usually you go and visit and you see them for 10 minutes or whatever, and it's busy. But
What was it like being around a newborn for prolonged periods of time?
all I can think of is how much respect I have for mums. Do you know what I thought? How the fuck does Laura do it? That's what I thought.
Why?
How do you do anything?
And I don't.
But no, that's my point. Like when you're running businesses and you've got a newborn and you're trying to live your life and you're trying to, all I could think of, and he was fine. He just laid there and slept. But my mind got very carried away. I was like, wow, mums are amazing. Like they just do so much stuff. Because you guys forget. Well, you don't forget. I tell you all the time. But I'm mid to late 30s now, and I have spent my whole life with no kids. And even when I have a partner, they're not here. So the amount of free time that I have to have a nap, or maybe I want to go to the gym in 10 minutes, or I want to have a sauna, or I want to go for a walk, or I'm meeting my friends for dinner. Like
It's an absolute like anomaly. It's such an unbelievable novelty being able to live life like whenever you want to live life.
I'm so selfish with my time because I've never had to give it to anyone. I haven't been forced to give it to anyone else. So for me, I've lived 37 years like that. So it's a real shock to the system when I have to consider someone else.
On the flip side of that, I had one of those days yesterday, and I think every parent will relate to this. I had one of those days where 6:30 came around and all I wanted to do was get my children into bed.
So you
I was like,
sedated
my
them?
life. No, just like, I just was like wishing away the hours for bedtime because it was just a hard day. And I was
Yeah.
like, I cannot wait. I love them. They're amazing. I cannot wait until they're asleep.
Until they're 18.
And then I cannot wait until they move out.
I can't wait till they get married and someone takes them off my hands.
Anyway, guys, that is it from us. Look, tomorrow's episode, as we said, it is with hospice nurse Julie. It's a really beautiful episode. I think whether you have lost someone, you have someone going through palliative care, whether you have elderly grandparents, or, even if you just have parents, because at some point you are going to lose someone who you love. That is a horrible reality of life, but it is truly a beautiful episode. And I think everybody will learn something for it. And it will give you a bit of comfort as well as to how to deal with things in your own life, but also how to support and help the people around you who might be going through something.
Don't forget, tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
We love love!